All right, we have one. So let's get started. So this video is all about why you should carry a firearm, or at the very minimum, get the training to do so. Um, those who aren't gun people, they may likely have to defend themselves even without a firearm. So let's say a dangerous weapon. Um, Contrary to popular belief, your fist and your hands, your feet, knees, body parts can also be dangerous weapons. Um, this is an impromptu video to react to the last two mass injuries that we've encountered here in the United States has been publicized. So the first one was a stabbing. There was 11 individuals, I believe, were stabbed or sliced, and I think that was in I want to say it was in Michigan. And if you hear my son, I apologize. He's being crazy down there. But yeah, so there's a stabbing in Michigan. I can't remember the name of the city, and I believe it was 11 people were injured. And then one person, it took one person to step up to stop the rest of the mayhem. One person. That's all it took. One person to recognize the danger and to do something about it. And that man is a hero in my book. Not because of anything more than he had the courage to do what was necessary to protect others. Then we have we had a shooting here in Reno, Nevada. I think it was in front of a. I think it was in front of a casino, and that shooting so far, I think there's 4 people injured, right? And this is very, very, very new information, so there could be more. I don't know, but from when I started research, there's been 4 people injured in the shooting, and I think that's to include the individual, the suspect. So the common theme here, and this is predictable, okay? This is a predictable situation, at least in the commonality of all these incidences. There's not one incident out there that didn't involve some kind of crazed individual. Okay. Now the individual could have been well educated, could have been well kept, or maybe not well kept. Could have been somebody maybe it could have been anybody. But at the end of the day, that was a crazed individual, and that's the common theme for each and every one of these incidents that happen. Now, why are they crazed? I don't know. It could have been, they lost a job, or they had a divorce, or there's custody battle, or the combination thereof, or their dog died. All these things stack on top of each other, which is conducive also to the S word. I'm not going to say that because I think YouTube will have a shit fit. Those who want to um, take care of business on their own terms, let's say, that's the same theme with that crowd as well. So these things start stacking up on top of each other, and that's not necessarily always true, but that's the common theme, right? So it doesn't matter if the person who stabbed all these people and the person who shot all these people in different parts of the nation, the common theme is that it was a crazed individual that did it. Okay. And you don't know who that's going to be. Could be a coworker, could be a family member, it could be an acquaintance, could be a stranger. You just don't know. And you don't know where it's going to happen. So those are things we can't predict. We cannot predict who or where it's going to happen. Okay. But we can predict that it's going to be a crazed individual. It's going to be somebody who is probably going through some issues, let's call it. Okay. Now, the other common theme here, and this is true for 99.9% of the cases where there's a violent incident. Okay. 99.9% of the cases, the cops always show up too late. Almost every single time. You might as well call it every time, because the cops cannot be everywhere all the time. And even if they could, you wouldn't want them everywhere at all the time, right? So even if you could have a cop on every corner of every city block, let's say, you wouldn't want them there. You would probably end up saying, it's a police state or something of that nature. So even if they could be everywhere all the time, you still wouldn't want that. Okay. So what does that mean to us as individuals? That means that we have to train. We have to, at least at the very minimum, get some kind of a lecture for self-defense. Okay. So that lecture could be concealed handgun training. It could be someone like myself just talking about some of the laws of the state, right? So your rights as an individual who resides in that state. You know what you can do and what you can't do when it comes to either deadly physical force or physical force, and using the use of deadly weapons, for example. And like I said in my intro, your fist and your feet can also be deadly weapons, depending on who the prosecutor is, right? So, just because you don't like guns per se, doesn't mean that you wouldn't be prosecuted for defending yourself, even with your hands or your fist. So you should 100%, and this is no exaggeration, you should get some level of training where, at a minimum, it's a lecture about the laws of self-defense, especially in your state. Okay. So I would like to pose a question to anybody who is either listening now. I have two listeners right now. Thank you. Or anybody who's listening to this later. Here's my question. What are the downsides of getting some kind of formal training in the self-defense arena? What are the downsides? Moreover, what are the downsides, even if you're not a gun person, of getting some concealed carry training? Okay. Now, my wife and I talked about this a little bit, and we determined that probably the downsides are time, money, and effort. The trifecta there, right? It's going to take you some time to go to the course, of course, money to go to the course, to pay somebody like me to give the lecture, and then the effort of getting in your car and driving to the location or getting the equipment or whatever it is, right? So those are probably the downsides of getting some kind of formalized training for self-defense, especially when it comes to the concealed carry portion of self-defense. There's no other downside that I can see. Again, the question is, what are the downsides of getting concealed carry training and or self-defense training, right? And those are the only things to think of: the time it takes, the money it takes, and the effort it takes to actually get the formalized training. Now, what are the upsides of getting your self-defense and CCW or CHP training, whatever state you're in, is concealed carry training, or maybe not even concealed carry training. Maybe it's just a lecture about the laws, so you understand what your rights are and the physical boundaries of how you're going to defend yourself, right? What's the upsides to this? Well, the upside, you're going to learn about the laws. You're going to start thinking about maybe different scenarios that you may have encountered in the past. And you're going to start understanding what self-defense is in your state, especially when it comes to deadly physical force. Okay. So here in the state of Colorado, if somebody is in your house and they're not supposed to be there, let's say they broke in, you're immune from civil and criminal prosecution. You're immune from it. It says it right in the law. It says it right in law, point blank. Okay. Now that not all states are like that, so you need to understand your state law. Now, outside of your home, to include the curtilage of your home, it changes, right? Now it changes from, whether you're in your home or not. Okay. If they're in your home, you're good. You probably have less of an issue to assert self-defense within your home. Now, outside of your home, there has to be an imminent threat. Well, what the fuck is an imminent threat? What is an imminent threat, right? How are we going to determine that? Well, the only way you're going to determine what an imminent threat is, if you haven't been faced with that situation in the past, is either one, you're going to be faced with a situation, okay, and you're going to recognize it, but you're not going to know what to do. Or two, you're going to get some formal training where you will recognize it and you will know what to do, or at least you'll know the direction to go. You might not know exactly what to do at that moment, but you'll know the direction to go. And then moreover, you're going to know your rights, because just because you have a self-defense situation, it doesn't mean you won't be prosecuted for defending yourself, right? In your mind, you're thinking, I defended myself, but maybe the prosecutor in your jurisdiction doesn't see it that way, and they charge you with a crime. Which is a good segue into saying you should probably get attorneys on retainer. My link is below. If you get attorneys on retainer for your self-defense coverage, use my code, please. I get a small kickback. It's a very, very small kickback, but it helps this channel. It helps us keep going, and it helps us grow our members. All right, back on the subject. If you don't know the law and you haven't gone through some scenarios in your head at the very minimum, or in a classroom setting, you don't get the feedback from the classmates, right? Because that's what I do. I interact with my classmates and say, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? What do you think about this? Right? And it gets the brain, the fluids in your brain, it gets them moving. And you're like, well, okay, well, what about this? And so on and so forth. Because there's not a cookie cutter situation that says it's self-defense or not. But there is a law, whether it's self-defense or not, right? So if you don't study the law, if you don't get at least a formal class on it, how do you know? You don't, is the question. That's the answer. You don't know the answer to that question. You can sit there and say, well, I know what self-defense is. If somebody attacks me, blah, 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 right? Yeah, but you don't know all the laws, and you could find yourself in trouble, right? So the two common themes for all of the mass shootings and for almost every single violent thing that's happened, either has been publicized or not, doesn't matter. Okay, the two common themes is it's a crazed individual, and law enforcement show up after the fact, and that's undisputable. You can look all the statistics up that you want. That is an undisputable fact. that it's going to be somebody who's crazed, right? Whether they could be on drugs or something like that, but at the end of the day, they're crazed for some reason or another. Like they got fired from a job, losing they're divorced, their custody battle, their dog died, a bunch of stuff, a combination of stuff, and you don't know who they're going to be. And the law enforcement officers always show up after the fact. In the case of the stabber, or the person with the knife, like I said earlier, there was a bystander that actually had to take matters in his own hand to stop the threat. He didn't shoot the threat, he stopped him from continuing on. Kudos to him, he has some restraint there. But the other one, the shooter in Reno, the law enforcement officer showed up and found him in 4 minutes. Now that's pretty quick. It's pretty quick, but it's not quick enough, and it never will be. And that's why you should get self-defense training, especially with a firearm. Okay. Now, most likely, most likely places that you would encounter a self-defense situation. Well, driving down the interstate is a good one. There's probably not many of you that do not drive, and for those of you who do drive, which is the vast majority of you, there's no doubt that you've seen some reckless driver or some kind of road rage or something of that nature. Now, imagine yourself being cut off by someone, and then they get mad at you, and they stop the vehicle, and you have to stop. What are you going to do? What can you legally do? Right? Have you thought about these things? That's where the class comes in. Do you have a firearm? Do you not have a firearm? Do you get out? Do you not get out? Do you try to drive off? Do you, all these different scenarios can play in your head. But at the end of the day, if you don't know what you can legally do and stay within the boundaries of the law, you could find yourself in trouble. Another place is workplace violence, right? So imagine this: you're at a workplace. You know of a couple people. You probably mingle with a few people or whatever, but you may not know everybody in that place. And you're definitely not going to know their situation at home. You're not going to know their financial situation, their spiritual situation, their marital situation. You're not going to know everything about that person all the time, right? The only person that you know about yourself is yourself, right? And my point is that you might be having a conversation with a person one day, and the next day they flip, they snap because let's say they got fired. And statistically speaking, workplace is where mass shootings happen, right? Most of the time, the workplace, if you look it up. Okay. So I like to use the Violence Project. I think they're a little bit liberal and bias, but they have some very, very, very good data. So you got to give credit where credit's due. I'll link that below too. So where else can you find yourself in a self-defense situation? Well, as we've seen from these last two incidents, it could be pretty much anywhere, like right in front of a casino in Reno, for example. And then the other place was a Walmart. So you just don't know where it's going to happen, right? So the idea here I'm trying to convey is you should be prepared, not paranoid, prepared, right? A lot of people say, "Well, you're just being paranoid, et cetera, et cetera." No, and I'm not being paranoid. I just understand that I don't know everybody, and those who I do know, I don't know their situation, and I don't know if they're going to do something in the future or around me or even at me, whatever it is. So you kind of need to be prepared in the event something does happen. And if you don't think about it, if you just keep your head in the sand, then you're never going to be prepared. One of the videos I watched, you could hear the lady say, well, who would do such a thing like this? I would never do anything, or something like that. It's like something like that, right? And that just showed her ignorance that people can be pushed to the edge, and they may have some other outlying factors, but human is wicked at heart, and people in general are very capable of doing very, very bad things to other humans. I've had friends that said that they would defend their pets more than they would defend another human. Now, I think that's wrong and backwards, but that's what they said. And, they have some validity there, right? Your dog is going to be way more loyal than a human. Your cat is going to be, even though they're not very loyal, they'll be, where they're coming from, right? So, um, yeah, I kind of see their point. But at the end of the day, you have to be prepared to defend yourself against another human. And those of you who are like hiking with guns and stuff like that, hey, great. You want to defend yourself against the cat and the bear and the whatever, but you're not likely going to get attacked by a bear. You're more likely to get attacked by a human. So you have to put yourself in this mindset that not everybody out there loves you, and not everybody out there hates you. They're just walking around. They might not even know you, and you might be the first person they see when they snap. Okay. All right. So this message is really geared towards well, it's geared towards both crowds, the gun crowd and the non-gun crowd, right? So first let me go on with the gun crowd. The gun crowd, and I can hear it now. Constitutional carry is the way, right? Like, okay, whatever, man, go fuck yourself. Yeah, I understand that CCW permits and CHP permits are unconstitutional, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But there is a reason for these kinds of things. Now, I don't appreciate that the government is telling you you have to get the training, right? I don't appreciate that. I don't think they should do that. But at the end of the day, you should get the training. You should understand the laws. You should get all that training, right? Now, I'm not saying that to say you should get the training before you get the firearm. You should 100% get this firearm, right? Period. Exercise your constitutional right. But you should definitely get the training as well, especially when it comes to laws and to keep you out of trouble, right? So that's what I mean by that. And I can hear the constitutional carry guys now, and they're like, "Oh, shall not be infringed." Yep, I get it. Shall not be infringed. I understand that. But at the end of the day, if you're not willing to learn to keep yourself out of jail, you're doomed to be prosecuted for something you thought was correct, but it wasn't. Now, for the gun people, for the non-gun people, if you're listening at this point, which you're probably not, but if you're listening at this point, even if you don't carry a firearm, if you refuse to carry a firearm, you should go and shoot the damn gun. You should get the training. For the same reasons the gun people should get the training. Because you don't know if you're going to be faced with a situation that is going to produce a reaction. And that reaction from you could be deemed illegal activity. And to keep yourself within the parameters of the law and to understand what self-defense is in your state, how it's applied, what deadly physical force is versus physical force, what you can do within your home, what you can do outside of your home, if your vehicle is part of your home. All these different things, and not to mention the scenarios that you would be talking about from people like me who purport that we understand the law and that we can give you value to your understanding of how that law is applied. So that's my spiel for this live feed. I wanted to get it out there because the last two incidences, if you're here in Colorado Springs, you know, you can look at the news just about every day. There's generally a shooting in the southeast portion of Colorado Springs, and it's generally after, it's within the night hours. It's generally after 10 o'clock, but every now and again there's one like in the morning at 8 o'clock in the morning or something like that. So you just don't know when these things are going to happen. So you can obviously you want to avoid situations. So don't be out past freaking 10 o'clock, let's say. And if you're going to be out past 10 o'clock, then you need to have a plan of where you're going to be. You need to have somebody who's sober, who's going to be able to defend the group, let's say, or at least to corral the drunkards. And you need to know your area. Okay, so avoidance. But if you can't avoid it, then you can try to deter the situation. And if you can't deter it, then you have to be prepared to defend yourself. And that's the bottom line. Whether you're a gun toter or whether you're not a gun toter, I think you should carry a gun. And either way, you should get the training because it's going to protect you in the future if you have to use it. Much like, I don't know, your life vest in the boat. If you have to use your life vest, well, it's there, but you generally don't have to use it. Okay. But if the boat tips or whatever, it's there. Same thing with the fire extinguisher in your house or in your car or something. It's there. You might not have to use it. Statistically speaking, you won't, but it's there. It's equated to the gun. The gun is there for you to use if you have to use it, and you should be prepared and you should be trained to use it in the event you do. That's it. That's my spill. I hope you guys like this video. Again, attorneys on retainer. Links down below. Use my little QR code, or it's not QR code, excuse me. Use my code. You have to copy and paste the code in there to let them know that I sent you. And then if you have any questions about, getting your Colorado concealed handgun permit, ask away. If you have any questions about tactical games training that we're doing here, again, we're not affiliated with tactical games, but we like to train for the tactical games, and I'll be competing in the tactical games here in October. Anything gun related, obviously the SIG P320 is a big hot topic right now. Where there's smoke, there's fire. That's all I got to say about that. If you want any recommendations about the firearm that you should carry, I mean, there's a lot of things that go into that, but I can provide that, or at least some insight. And then, yeah, so that's about it, man. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll check you later. Check out.